I'm Maya Thompson, 28 years old, and 1 month after what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding photographer called me with something that would completely shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. His voice was shaking when he said, "Maya, I noticed something terrible in your wedding photos. You need to come to my studio immediately, and whatever you do, don't say anything to your family until we talk." Before I get into what happened next, and how it destroyed my marriage before it even really began, make sure to hit that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from, because I need to know who's going through this nightmare with me right now. You have to understand, my wedding day felt like pure magic. After 3 years of planning, everything was perfect. The venue overlooking the lake, my grandmother's vintage dress that fit me like it was made for my body, and Mark, my husband, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. But it wasn't just about Mark and me. This wedding was supposed to heal years of family wounds, bring everyone together after so much pain and division. My parents divorced when I was 15, and it was ugly. Really ugly. My mom remarried my stepfather, David, 2 years later, and my dad struggled. He struggled with the divorce, with seeing mom move on, with feeling like he'd been replaced. For 13 years, family gatherings were either tense or impossible. Someone always had to choose sides. Holidays were split. I graduated college and my parents sat on opposite sides of the auditorium like strangers, but something about my engagement changed everything. Maybe it was seeing me happy, or maybe they all finally realized how much their fighting had cost us as a family. For the first time in over a decade, everyone agreed to not just attend my wedding, but to actually try to get along. My dad walked me down the aisle, my mom and stepfather hosted the rehearsal dinner. Even my dad's new girlfriend, Jennifer, came and was genuinely sweet to everyone. I remember standing at the altar, looking out at the reception, and feeling this overwhelming sense of peace. There was my dad, actually laughing at something my stepfather said. My mom was dancing with my little half-brother. For one perfect moment, it felt like we were a real family again, complicated and blended and imperfect, but finally whole. The photographer, Michael, had been with us all day. I'd hired him because his portfolio was incredible, but also because he had this calm, professional way about him that put everyone at ease. He captured everything: the formal shots, the candid moments, the little interactions between family members that I was too busy to notice in real time. When he left that night, he promised me the photos would be ready in 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into 4, then 5. When I called to check on them, Michael sounded different, distracted. He kept saying he was reviewing everything carefully and wanted to make sure he delivered exactly what I needed. I thought maybe he was just being a perfectionist, trying to edit them perfectly. I had no idea he was agonizing over whether to tell me what he'd discovered. When he finally called that Tuesday morning, I could hear the stress in his voice immediately. "Maya, I need you to come to my studio today. There's something in the wedding photos that you need to see. And Maya, don't bring Mark. Don't tell your family you're coming. Just come alone, okay?" The panic that shot through my chest was immediate and overwhelming. 1,000 terrible possibilities raced through my mind. Had someone done something inappropriate that got caught on camera? Was there something wrong with me in the photos? Had Michael made some kind of mistake that ruined everything? I called in sick to work and drove to his studio with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. I kept trying to prepare myself for disappointment. Maybe the photos were blurry, maybe the lighting was off, maybe he'd accidentally deleted half of them. But the tone of his voice suggested something much worse than technical problems. Michael's studio was in this converted warehouse downtown, and when I knocked, he opened the door immediately, like he'd been waiting right there. His face was pale, and he had dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "Maya," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "I've been a wedding photographer for 12 years. I've seen families fight. I've caught people cheating. I've witnessed drama that would make your head spin. But what I found in your photos, I've never seen anything like this." He led me to his computer, where he had dozens of photos pulled up on multiple screens. At first glance, they looked beautiful. Exactly what I'd hoped for. But Michael's face was grim as he clicked through them slowly. "I always review all the photos carefully before delivering them," he explained, his voice tight. "I look for the best angles, the right lighting, whether anyone blinked or made a weird face. But this time, when I was going through the candid shots, I started noticing patterns." He stopped on a photo from the cocktail hour. Guests mingling, laughing, holding drinks. It looked perfectly normal to me, but Michael pointed to the background. Look at your stepfather, he said quietly. Look at his hands. I squinted at the image, not understanding what I was supposed to see. David was holding a drink and talking to my uncle, looking relaxed and happy. But then Michael zoomed in, and I saw it. David's free hand was resting on my 15-year-old cousin Emma's lower back. Not her shoulder, not her upper back. His hand was positioned just above her waist, and his thumb was moving. You could see it in the slight blur of motion, the way his thumb was tracing small circles on her back. That could be innocent, I said immediately, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Maybe he was just being friendly, or... That's what I thought too, Michael interrupted, clicking to the next photo. Until I found this one. This photo was from later in the evening during the dancing. Emma was standing near the edge of the dance floor looking uncomfortable, and David was behind her, leaning down to whisper something in her ear. His hand was on her waist again, but this time you could clearly see her body language, the way she was leaning away from him, the tension in her shoulders. The forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. The rage that started building in my chest was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Show me more, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Michael clicked through photo after photo, and the pattern became undeniably clear. David's hands were always finding excuses to touch Emma. During the family photos, he positioned himself next to her and kept his arm around her waist instead of her shoulders. When she was sitting at the kids' table, he came over multiple times to check on her, each time placing his hand on her shoulder or arm and letting it linger. In one particularly disturbing shot, Emma was getting a drink from the bar, and David was standing behind her, so close that his body was almost pressed against hers. There are 43 photos where your stepfather is touching your cousin inappropriately, Michael said, his voice flat and professional, but I could hear the anger underneath. And in every single one you can see her discomfort. She's pulling away, creating distance, looking for escape routes. Maya, this isn't innocent. This is predatory behavior. I felt like I was going to be sick. Emma was my cousin, my Aunt Sarah's daughter, this sweet, shy girl who'd just started high school. She'd been so excited about the wedding, had helped with decorations, had been so proud to be included in the family photos. And my stepfather, the man my mother had been married to for 11 years, the man who'd helped raise me through my teenage years, the man I'd learned to trust and love like a father, had spent my wedding day sexually harassing a child. Does anyone else know? I managed to ask. No one, Michael said firmly. I haven't shown these to anyone else, and I won't unless you tell me to. But Maya, I couldn't just deliver these photos like nothing happened. I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. I stared at the computer screen, at image after image of my stepfather's inappropriate behavior, and felt my entire world cracking apart. This wasn't just about Emma, though my heart was breaking for her. This was about everything I thought I knew about my family, about the man my mother loved, about my own judgment and ability to see people clearly. How did I not see this? I whispered, more to myself than to Michael. I was there. I was watching everything. How did I miss this? Because you were the bride, Michael said gently. You were focused on 100 other things, and David was careful. He waited until you were busy with other guests, until your mother was distracted, until Emma was isolated. This is what predators do, Maya. They're opportunistic, and they're good at hiding their behavior. The pieces started falling into place then, and each realization made me feel sicker. Emma had been quiet during the reception, hadn't danced much, had left early with a headache. I'd thought she was just tired or overwhelmed by the crowd, but looking back, I could remember moments when she seemed uncomfortable, times when she'd moved away from groups of adults, instances when she'd stuck close to her parents or other kids. And David, God, David had seemed so helpful that day, so invested in making sure everything went smoothly. He'd offered to help coordinate with vendors, to make sure the older relatives were comfortable, to keep an eye on the younger kids. I'd been grateful for his involvement, had seen it as proof that he really cared about me and my happiness. Now I realized he'd been using my wedding as hunting grounds. I need copies of these photos, I said, my voice stronger now, fueled by anger. All of them, the inappropriate ones and the normal ones. I need evidence. Michael nodded and started transferring files to a flash drive. Maya, I have to ask, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell your mother? That question hit me like a physical blow. My mother, who had finally found happiness after years of struggle. My mother, who adored David, who'd built a life with him, who'd just watched her daughter get married in the most beautiful celebration of family unity we'd ever had. How do you tell someone that the person they love and trust is a predator? How do you destroy their world to protect a child? I don't know, I said honestly, but I know I have to do something. Emma, she's just a kid, and if he's doing this to her, at my wedding, in front of everyone, then she's probably not the first. Michael finished quietly. The drive home was a blur of rage and heartbreak. I kept thinking about Emma, about how scared she must have been, how trapped she must have felt. I thought about all the family gatherings she'd attended over the years, all the times she'd been around David when adults weren't paying close attention. I thought about my mother, and how this revelation was going to destroy her. But mostly, I thought about my own complicity. How many signs had I missed? How many times had David's behavior been inappropriate, and I'd rationalized it away as him being affectionate or fatherly? How many other children had he targeted while I was busy seeing him as a good man? When I got home, Mark was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to himself, completely unaware that our honeymoon period was about to end in the most brutal way possible. He took one look at my face and immediately turned off the stove. "What happened?" he asked, and I could hear the fear in his voice. "Maya, you look like someone died." I sat down at our kitchen table and told him everything. I showed him the photos on the flash drive, watched his face change from confusion to horror to rage. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, just staring at the computer screen. "We have to tell someone," he said finally. "We have to report this." "I know," I said, "but Mark, this is going to destroy my family, my mom. This is going to kill her." "Your mom isn't the victim here," Mark said, and there was steel in his voice. "Emma is, and there might be other kids. Maya, we can't protect your mother's feelings at the expense of children's safety." He was right, and I knew it. But knowing something is right doesn't make it easier to do. I called Emma's mother, my Aunt Sarah, that night. I asked if I could come over to talk to her and Emma privately. Said it was important. When I showed up at their house with the laptop and flash drive, Sarah knew immediately that something was wrong. Emma was in her room doing homework, and Sarah called her downstairs. When I explained what Michael had found, Emma's face went white, and then she started crying. Not the dramatic crying of someone who's been caught or embarrassed, but the quiet, relieved crying of someone who's been carrying a terrible secret. "I didn't know what to do," Emma whispered. "He kept saying it was just family affection, that I was being too sensitive. He said if I told anyone, it would ruin the wedding and break Maya's mom's heart and everyone would blame me." Sarah was shaking with rage by this point. "How long?" she demanded. "Emma, how long has this been happening?" "Since last Christmas," Emma said quietly. "Maybe before that. But Christmas was when it got worse." My heart broke completely then. While I was opening presents and laughing with family, my stepfather was grooming and molesting my 15-year-old cousin, while my mother was making holiday dinner and talking about how grateful she was for our blended family. Her husband was being a predator. Sarah immediately called the police, and I stayed with Emma while she gave her statement. Watching this brave, smart girl recount months of inappropriate touching and psychological manipulation was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. But I was also proud of her for speaking up, for trusting us with her truth. The next step was telling my mother, and that conversation will haunt me for the rest of my life. I went to her house the next morning, asked David to leave so we could talk privately, and showed her the photos. I watched 11 years of love and trust crumble in real time. I watched my mother realize that the man she'd shared a bed with, shared a life with, had been hurting children. She believed me immediately, which was both a relief and somehow made it worse. There was no denial, no defending him, just immediate devastating acceptance of the truth. "I knew something was off lately," she said, her voice barely audible. Emma had been avoiding family gatherings, and when she did come, she seemed different around David. I thought maybe she was just going through typical teenage stuff, but God, Maya, I should have known. David was arrested that evening. The investigation revealed that Emma wasn't his only victim. 2 other girls came forward, including a family friend who'd been too afraid to speak up years earlier. The man I'd learned to see as a father figure was actually a serial predator who'd been using our family connections to access vulnerable children. My mother filed for divorce immediately, but the damage was done. Our family, which had just started healing, was shattered again, this time maybe permanently. The beautiful wedding photos I'd been so excited to display became evidence in a criminal case. The family unity I'd felt so grateful for had been built on a lie. Emma is in therapy now, and she's doing better. but she'll be dealing with the trauma of what David did for the rest of her life. My mother is in therapy too, wrestling with guilt and betrayal and the knowledge that she unknowingly enabled a predator. Our family gatherings are different now, smaller, more careful, haunted by the knowledge of how wrong we all were about someone we trusted. But here's what I learned from this nightmare. Trusting someone doesn't mean turning off your critical thinking. Being family doesn't mean overlooking red flags. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is believe a child, even when it means destroying everything you thought you knew. Michael, the photographer, has become an advocate for recognizing signs of abuse. He now includes information about reporting suspicious behavior in his client contracts, and he's never charged me a penny for the photos or his time. He said documenting predatory behavior and helping protect children is part of his responsibility as someone who witnesses family dynamics through his lens. The wedding photos that were supposed to capture the happiest day of my life instead became the evidence that saved my cousin from continued abuse. That's not the story I wanted my wedding photos to tell, but I'm grateful they exist. I'm grateful Michael was paying attention. I'm grateful Emma was finally able to tell her truth. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt uncomfortable around a family member or family friend, trust that instinct. If you've ever seen an adult's behavior with children that seemed off, don't rationalize it away. And if you're a child or teenager dealing with inappropriate behavior from adults, please know that it's not your fault. It's not normal family affection, and there are people who will believe you and help you. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. And if this story resonated with you, please share it. Sometimes the most important conversations are the hardest ones to have, but they're the ones that can save lives. And if you know a child who seems uncomfortable around certain adults, pay attention. Sometimes a photograph can reveal the truth that everyone else is missing. Hit that subscribe button if you want more real stories about family, trauma, and healing. Because unfortunately, Emma's story isn't unique, and the more we talk about these realities, the better we can protect the children in our lives.